So welcome everyone on our weekly podcast about Databricks release notes. This is something new that we're starting. And please welcome Gábor. My name is Benedek and we're both instructors at Datapao and would like to give you our favorite updates on Databricks, what has happened recently, by going through the release notes and cherry picking what we really like. I think we should start first with some UI updates, Gábor. What do you think?
Exactly. Yeah. Those are always important since that's what you interact with in Databricks mostly.
Yeah, and surprisingly, usually if I go into the UI, there is always some small updates that is maybe not even in the release notes, but that sometimes helps for interacting with the workspace. Sometimes it's just there is something I need to learn again and
Absolutely. Yeah.
need to be familiar with. So there's one thing I think which I realized right in the workspace. So it said that the release notes said that there is now the tree view in the side panel, which seems to be a relatively small thing, but sometimes it might help. I've heard one of my colleagues complaining about it because they are used to the normal view where you just go through the subfolders and they appear there, but now you can open the subfolders. Let me quickly show that. So in this view, I have a folder open. This is just a normal folder in Databricks, and now you can just simply have this drop down, and it opens the subfolders instead of focusing on it. So you can look into subfolders and even other subfolders inside that. And there is one functionality, and someone will like it, someone might not like it. Actually, you can get back to the exact same functionality as what was it before, either by turning off this feature or simply going into this focus mode. So there's this focus icon, and you go into there, and then it will have that folder open on your left panel. So this is exactly the same behavior as previously. Now there's one extra feature that was not highlighted, but I like it quite a lot, which is this button here.
Actually, I wanted to talk a little bit about what's sort of left-ish to that. So you can there are two ways to navigate the tree. I found myself using this navigation a lot more. This sort of sub navigation where you can go up and down the full tree and then select one folder. So that helped
That's
me a lot
also
to
great.
sort of get around things.
Yeah. So let me also show once you are in some random subfolder, it's also sometimes for me it was difficult to know, okay, there was another notebook here that I opened previously, and this tab will not sync. So I don't know where is this notebook, and I often had multiple branches of the same repository open in different folders, and I never know in which repository I was. So recently this change also introduced this sync to tab, which is very good because now I can click on it and it will open that subfolder where this actual notebook is located. So this is something I find quite useful.
So basically it works in two ways, but the same concept. So you either sync the notebook to the view or you sync the tree view to the notebook, right? Since that's what the focusing and the sync to tab functionality is, right? If you think about it.
Yes, actually right. So small updates, but you need to get used to it again. So there's maybe one feature that is even more important in terms of the UI, because so recently, as you might have seen, they introduced these Git folders in the UI, asset bundles in the UI, and all of those small things that make the Databricks UI actually a good IDE, because these are normals. You have the same in VS Code, this tree view, whatever, and it will focus. They will all have these features, but now Databricks UI also has this fully featured IDE kind of feeling. Also, especially when we talk about the Lakeflow pipeline UI, which is something that was introduced last year, but I think that is a pretty good one. So there's one additional thing to this. Recently they introduced the testing UI. So In the testing UI, it's practically, again, just giving you some functionality that was available in local IDEs like VS Code, but you can have that running in a workspace. Now you can run tests, and you can, just have an overview of how this test performing. So if we go back to the workspace, there is also I just imported an asset bundle. But why I imported this asset bundle? Because it has tests.
To add here, while you're loading that testing, is that previously you were also able to use debuggers in Python. That's also very new functionality. I don't think that many people know about the Python debugging capabilities. You can actually see right beside the lines, the numbers that you can actually stop and start a debug session. This testing, I think, is one of the last steps to, as you said, to truly make Databricks a full IDE, which is a lot easier to exit than Vim. So that's a plus already, I think. But sorry, you were saying about tests?
Yeah, that's correct. So it's like adding all the functionalities that you would have from software engineering into this UI. So once you're in here, if you open any folder, you will find this test button. But I will do something else here because this happens to be within an asset bundle. So I will already switch UI. It offers me to switch to the bundle UI. And then within the bundle, you can also run the tests. And let me see if I can run this test. So what is happening here is practically nothing else than just running the file using here serverless compute engine, and it identifies this test and it gives me a summary. So nothing so special, but now you can go ahead and look into your test outputs right away in the UI. There's also this small icon that was introduced with this change. Like it looks like the experiments UI, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. I think it's actually the same icon.
Yeah, probably it's the same icon, but
yeah, it's probably the same.
Well, I wonder what will happen if you have PyTests or if you have tests in an MLflow experiment. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean that's a reasonable request. Then you have many different types of experiments in the same workspace.
Yeah, great. And you also have here this nice view of succeeded and failed tests. Do you remember something similar? This reminds me of the expectations view. In
oh yeah, it actually does. Yeah.
In pipelines, it was the same. I think it's not anymore like that, but it used to be similar buttons.
It used to be very similar, especially if you've added the not just the failed and pass checks, but also sometimes you could just monitor that some rows have failed instead of failing the entire update or dropping the entire row. Then you could definitely see 3 icons next to each other, like monitor, this is probably failing, and I actually dropped and then passed records.
Yeah. So all right, that's some UI changes. So again, some extra, and of course it makes the workspace a bit more complex, but most of them I find useful in my day-to-day work.
And I also found that as the UI gets more complex, you could say it also gains a lot of new features. And when we talk about UI features, of course, sometimes they have correlated behind the scenes features. Sometimes they don't, if that doesn't necessarily make sense. Maybe you were already running tests within VS Code through Databricks. Now you have one more reason to move to the UI, or, maybe that's not something of concern for you. But anyway, I think it's very important to have these. I like the tree view a lot. I've instantly started using, as I've said, this sort of side panel version of it, constantly changing between projects. And I haven't really worked with Python unit tests yet, but I will check them out as well.
Yeah, and of course, that does not move away the possibility to do local testing or testing in a CI, so it's just an addition. So there's some other fine, nice release updates. Excel support now with Databricks. Can you share some insights about the Excel support there?
Yeah, there is definitely, and you guys might know, might not know, but for a while we've supported as part of Lakeflow Connect. We had Excel support, so basically from Spark itself, you could load a an Excel file itself into a data frame and into a Delta table. Now, aside from that, with Lakeflow Connect, now we have a full managed Excel connector as well. So you can actually connect to Excel and either load data from Excel or put Databricks data directly into your Excel code and Excel sheets itself. So much so that you can actually run queries or put full tables into Excel itself, which I think is kind of amazing. I think it's been a long time coming, and there are many people who are refusing to give up Excel. I think bringing them into the 21st century, letting them use Databricks while maintaining what they were doing in Excel is a great sort of way to bring together worlds.
So it's practically highlighting that Excel, Databricks is not replacing Excel, and that was the same
Yeah.
with Python. Python is not replacing Excel, but there are certain tasks that are more efficient and easier to do in Python than in Excel. Probably it's the same case here. So you would still want to have an overview in your favorite tool and in Excel, but you might want to manage data in Databricks and might want to get
Yeah.
access to it within Excel. So that's great.
So basically, if you have somebody in your team who is like, oh, I actually do all of my workloads, all of my analytics in Excel still, now you can let them create thin layered Excel sheets where most of the heavy lifting is done by Databricks tables or Databricks queries with Databricks SQL, of course, in the background, and they still have an Excel output as a view. So yeah, and just to not let any sort of Googlers down, Databricks also has a Google Sheet support as well. It is on a similar level, of course, because these are separate connectors in the larger Lakeflow Connect ecosystem. There will be differences in how the exact connectors are executed and what features you have, but the same ideas are true for Google Sheets as well. You can load tables and you can run queries from Databricks directly in your Google Sheets. For example, we at Datapao use Google Sheets mostly, so I'm looking forward to actually checking that out, because some of our business reports can be potentially finally be fully Databricks oriented and even keeping our finance people happy and staying in Excel or Google Sheets
Oh,
for
Google
that
Sheet, yeah.
matter. Yeah,
Okay, so that's
exactly.
like, is it in feature parity with Excel? Like, you can load from Google Sheets, and also you can have the results of your query visible in Google Sheet. Is that the case?
That's true, exactly. And you can also schedule data refreshes for Google Sheets. I think that might be a little bit farther ahead in terms of connector maturity and features than Excel. But then again, I'm not entirely sure. I think there isn't a way at the moment to load any Google Sheet format or Google Sheet directly into Databricks, but you can do that with Excel files. So different feature parities definitely in the
Okay.
case.
So, but you can always have the freshest, the automatic refresher
Yes, absolutely.
on the queries that are going into Google Sheet. All right.
Oh yeah.
Great. All right. So now we talk about enterprise data. Some of the enterprise data always lives in Excel, which we certainly know. But there's other kinds of enterprise data, and there has been quite a lot of talks about Lakebase recently. So, and also there are quite many news about Lakebase. So, what would you call out first, Gábor?
Well, first of all, one thing to make clear here is Lakebase has been with us for quite a bit now. And we have now two different kinds of Lakebases, basically. One of them is the Lakebase provisioned. Yes, that's right. That's right. And now we have Lakebase Autoscaling, which is the newer version. Now, I'll get into the feature differences in a bit, but in terms of news, Lakebase Autoscaling, which is the newer one, is now available in more regions. That includes Canada, and I think it also includes European regions as well. And Lakebase Autoscaling is now also coming with a full compliance security profile. So that's HIPAA compliance, TISA X compliance, and so on. So if you are an enterprise customer, now you can rest a little bit assured. So what is Lakebase Autoscaling, and how is that different from the, I think, roughly a year old Lakebase, normal Lakebase, I would say. So Lakebase Autoscaling has branching, so you can actually have multiple states and multiple different outputs of your database. And as the name suggests, it also has autoscaling, so you can fully managed scale down to zero or set your scaling parameters completely. Lakebase provision, basically you got a compute and then you manually had to choose if you wanted to get larger compute, smaller compute.
If I recall correctly, so Lakebase was announced in the last summit last year, and then
Yeah,
of course
so, yes.
it was instantly available, like as a managed PostgreDB. So,
yes.
But it didn't really have the auto-scaling possibility or auto-scaling feature. It was just announced that there is auto-scaling coming soon. And what was really surprising for me is that I think before Christmas at some time, end of year last year, they pushed all these features through and they practically made it available. Lakebase Autoscaling made it available. If I'm not mistaken, that was pretty much the features that the Neon, the company that Databricks acquired to have Lakebase working, was originally had. And I guess they managed to bring all those features into the workspace. And what was really surprising for me, they actually created a new UI for Lakebase Autoscaling. So now if you go to the workspace, now Lakebase is still kind of partly under the compute, so you find it hidden somewhere in the workspace, but that's practically not anymore true for Lakebase Autoscaling, because this is only the Lakebase provision. And if you see here this button, Autoscaling, this will open a new UI. So if you click that, this opens the Lakebase UI. And by the way, this is actually available right away in the workspace. So in the top right, you will see this up switcher, and you can find Lakebase Postgres at the same level as you would find Databricks 1 and the normal Lakehouse UI. So I think the positioning here is pretty much on a different level. So Databricks is really targeting different customers with Lakebase Postgres. So practically those who develop enterprise applications, those who really just want to have OLTP-based workloads in an enterprise. And now it has a full UI, and you can create projects, and within the project you will have the branches, you will have the overviews. So it's pretty much a full functionality, not just a managed PostgreDB database. So actually it's now, I think it is much more than just a working managed PostgreDB.
There is a lot of features that autoscaling has that provisioned Postgres or provisioned Lakebase Postgres doesn't have. That includes, of course, the namesake, autoscaling, also scaling to zero, which wasn't possible before. You could either stop the database or just keep it going. Branching, as I've mentioned, instant restore. Then we also have the sync tables, which are available in both. And there is a bunch of other differences coming. As you said, this UI that you've just shown is probably somehow connected to the Neon application, which I do have to say, and if this is not clear for everybody, Neon is a Databricks company and they still exist as a product. So your product is not going away, your Neon usage is not going away. Of course, they are definitely leading you into Databricks, and most of the features of Neon are now available on Databricks. One of the main one was branching, the ability to create essentially snapshots and developer instances of the same database itself, so you can create a customized developer experience when you're updating databases. And the other thing is, why is that? I mean, we wouldn't be instructors if we didn't talk about this a little bit. Why is Lakebase in compute? You know, you might think, oh, it's a Postgres database. It must be in compute because it's, you know, it's all connected together. It's important to remember that when we talk about Lakebase, there is still separation of storage and compute. And what you are setting up is still very much your compute of Lakebase, and effectively your database, your long-term database still lives on, basically your cloud providers, just like your data tables. That's very similar to that. So it's very important to understand that it's not suddenly, Databricks is not throwing away the compute storage separation guidelines. Yeah, the main concepts is still there. It's still very much in effect, but now we do support OLTP databases, multiple kinds, right?
Yeah, and I think there's quite some adoption already. And it plays well with Databricks apps, because one of my favorites, because in Databricks apps you can develop custom applications, and that in large enterprises it does really exist, that you are kind of creating your internal applications, which of course requires some kind of persistent storage and transactional capabilities, so to be able to manage user sessions and whatever. And also this plays very well with agentic models, because agentic models will typically not be just a vanilla ChatGPT UI. They will be something that can do more with your data, and for that they will need memory. You will want to use Databricks Lakebase for the memory of your application and store your chat history, whatever you need to run that application. So there is tons of possibilities there, and I'm looking forward to developing some of them.
I mean, you absolutely ruined my joke, to be honest, because I wanted to say that if you were frozen in time in 2007, Databricks, and you were woken up and said, oh, you can still develop an application, a web application, and connect a simple database to it, then you would have said, oh, yeah, I'm in 2007, all right. But now it's in the cloud, now it's through Databricks, and now that you've mentioned foundational models, complex AI systems, very, very capable AI systems, of course, that's an absolute game changer, and it's not going to be the same as, back in the day, Web 2.0, developing some applications and adding Postgres to it. So,
yeah. That actually leads me to another topic that I wanted to touch upon, which is what is new there in agentic AI. Of course, we cannot go away without mentioning that. And one thing that I really liked is, I started coding with AI. Of course, if I wouldn't do that, I would be back in the last century. But what is really cool in Databricks is that you can. So how would you do AI coding? You need some kind of a frontier model, like the Claude models or GPT codecs. Okay, these are extremely good models for writing code. But you still want to somehow manage which model you have access to from an organization, because it's not just the Wild West where you can sign up to any provider. You still really want to have an enterprise kind of subscription. You would like to regulate who has access to which model. So developing an application using AI or any kind of agentic application requires governance on top of your model endpoints. And what is really cool in Databricks, you have access to the most recent frontier models. Like in the release notes, what I see is that now GPT 5.4 is available. I didn't even know that it came out recently. GPT 5.3 Codex is available, which is again very new. I remember some models being available on Databricks at the same time as their authors at their company released them. So there is good collaboration between Anthropic and Databricks, for example, and also OpenAI and Databricks. So their models are always available in Databricks.
Anthropic was the one that was available from the get-go, I think, back a year ago as well. OpenAI, the OpenAI sort of contract that these new models are instantly available, I think that's quite new, I believe.
Yeah. And what actually happened recently in the UI or with the models, I kind of Databricks realized, I believe, that how you can access these models is a little bit different from how you would access other models and what you host on Databricks. So recently, what appeared here on the left sidebar is the AI Gateway. So AI Gateway is nothing new. It existed, but it was part of the model serving or the serving endpoint. So now in the serving endpoint, you would have your normal classic ML models hosted on Databricks or deployed on Databricks, and you would have also the AI Gateway, which is practically just a proxy redirecting you to the other models. Now this became a first party or first level feature in Databricks, and it has a new UI even, which really focuses on these endpoints. And I think that completely makes sense, because in serving you would configure, okay, what is the compute that serves my classical ML models. For these endpoints or the gateway endpoints, you would not consider the UI. You would want to limit the rate, how many tokens you can consume from the provider, and they're kind of different types of instances. So they made it a first level service, and also some nice metrics are instantly visible here. So all the models that are here, you can see if there are any rate limits, if usage tracking is on. So practically all the enterprise features that are needed for these models or to run these models are just available in this new part of the UI.
And you can also see, by the way, that, for example, inference tables are now much clearly visible than before. If you remember, I think that was also 2025, maybe 2024, when they've announced the whole concept of this AI gateway and how it would, auto filter things for you, for example, but also inference tables were also part of that. Usage tracking, rate limits were also part of that. But all of that feature was hidden in a sub menu, which you couldn't clearly see when you were looking through your different provisioned endpoints, the ones like here, or the ones that you can configure, for example, through Azure ML. So now, or Azure OpenAI, now you can clearly see that, and I think this is a better UI than what we had before, because I think people were more interested in seeing, do I have usage tracking, rather than seeing the name and seeing potentially just the number of tokens that you use in any given model.
Yeah, and absolutely, I think that contributes to making these features ready for enterprise usage. And there's one other thing I think which is super important here. You instantly have this nice button here, create dashboard, and the create dashboard is really about monitoring what's happening, because large enterprises are always concerned about, okay, how much is the usage, if I can limit the usage of this endpoint. And now you can have that monitoring built in, and of course it is using the same pattern as for any other monitoring on Databricks. So it builds on top of system tables, and it creates you a dashboard template where you can look into what is the usage of your models. Yeah, so that I think that's cool. And also there are some other release notes that's worth mentioning, which I think complements these features with enterprise level request. Like, for example, you can have now managed outflows for external MCP servers. Agentbricks Knowledge Assistant is now instantly available for workspaces that have enhanced security and compliance settings, which is, how can we make sense of this? So these are the low level features, like network access features and all those features that are required in an enterprise setting, but might be a limiting factor for agentic AI. Now these things are constantly being rolled out so that they're compliant with the requirements, and you can go ahead and start using them. So I think this really makes the Databricks a good platform for playing with these models, and not just hacking together some applications.
I also think that Databricks is definitely ramping up the sort of compliance options and rolling out the features and then the compliant features after that. I think that sort of time difference between these two feature rollouts are definitely shrinking. As you know, Knowledge Assistant has been only available, what, a few months now, properly GA, and now you can actually use it even if you are an enhanced security customer. You know, we're talking about banks here basically, and you know, many other kind of regulated industries. So I think that's really great to see. We've seen, I think, a lot of customers come to us, for example, and say, oh, we really want to use this and that feature, but we have to be, you know, HIPAA compliant, for example. How do you know anything about that? How can you help us do that? I think Databricks is also realizing that now.
Yeah, indeed. All right, so I think that's enough for today. There's of course a lot of other release note features that we'll talk about, but we'll come back to these features regularly, and we'll discuss them in the next video. So thank you very much, and thank you, Gábor, for the discussion. Hello, everyone.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Bye bye.